Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me today, especially when it's the Super Bowl. Not sure exactly how the quality of um, my Zoom today is going to be because my partner is watching it. That may disrupt my internet connection. Hopefully, it does not. Okay, so today we are taking a look at the Pantoum, which the defining quality of a pantoum is its repetition. So it has repeating lines that appear in the subsequent stanzas. I'm going to share my notebook. I have it kind of set up right now that um, the first, no, I did it wrong over here. That's why I crossed it out. The second and fourth lines become the first and third lines of subsequent stanzas. I have four stanzas set up here, but you can have any number of stanzas that you wish. I've seen pantoums that use rhyme scheme. I'm not going to be using rhyme scheme. The majority of contemporary, or maybe all of the contemporary pantoums that I have read don't involve rhyme scheme. And in fact, most of the contemporary pantoums that I have read also deviate from the repetitive lines to some extent. I'll explain more as I go along. So, let's see. I was thinking that maybe I would write like a lovey-dovey poem because next week is Valentine's Day. Um, but I always feel when I try to write a love poem that it comes out really cheesy and cliche. So I don't know if I want to do that. Um, I'm just gonna write what comes to my head right now, which, there's a lot of heaviness in the world right now. Maybe I'll start with that. Um, I don't really like starting a sentence with the words there is or there are. So maybe I'll go back and change it, but um, we'll start just with this. And then, revision is really where the writing of a poem takes place. There's a lot of heaviness in the world right now. The weight of waiting pulls at the neck, the spine, curving like um curving like an old woman, curving like an old woman, um, curving like an old woman. Mm, what is the old woman doing? Mm, I want to say like knitting or um, sipping tea, curving like an old woman, um, reminiscing.
Picking roses.
Ooh, I like that. Reminiscing. Um, I'm gonna put a M dash there. I'm gonna go with her roses. Reminiscing her roses were once um, lush, vibrant in her youth. Okay, so I have my first stanza here. Now, I like to know where I'm going. Um, so I'm going to take the two and the four line. I'm going to input them ahead of time. So then when I'm writing to those lines. I have a goal. I need to get there so that those lines fit in and make sense. So I'm gonna start right here. The weight of waiting pulls at the neck, the spine. So I'm gonna skip this line and go straight to four. Her roses were once lush, vibrant in her youth. Okay, so I have this really interesting enjambment here with the spine. So this is up here more or less a complete thought. The weight of waiting pulls at the neck, the spine. But I can change this. So the weight of waiting pulls at the neck, period. I can turn this to a capital. Now I have a new sentence and then create an enjambment here. So it's just like a play on uh, the sentence, changing it up a little bit. The weight of waiting pulls at the neck. The spine, what does the spine do? Let's see. Um, the spine always knows. The spine always knows. Um, hmm, maybe I want the spine always shows. Um, the spine always shows um, powered for a warrior, trooper, soldier. Uh, Lionheart always shows a coward. Always shows. I'll go with Lionheart. I like that. Okay. Her roses were once lush, vibrant in her youth. Um, oh, I'm gonna change it here too. Her roses were once lush, period. And then vibrant in her youth. She did something as she was vibrant in her youth. Vibrant in her youth. Um, roads. Um, roads were open doors. Roads were open doors. And and cars. No. Roads were open doors. Though wild, the wild. I don't want to say world because we already said world up there. So vibrant in her youth, roads were open doors, and the wild was hers to own, to conquer. The wild was hers to explore, to, uh, yeah, I'll put explore. But I'm going to put this in brackets because I don't like this word. I want it to be something else, but I'm going to come back. Okay. So then here, I'm going to put input these lines always shows a coward or a lion heart. Then 6. Roads were open doors and the wild was hers. Maybe I'm just going to put hers. And the wild was hers. Okay. So always shows a coward or a lion heart isn't a good way to start a sentence. So um, so maybe I'm gonna make some other kind of play, or I'm gonna change one of these words. Always showing a coward or a lion heart, or something shows a coward or a lion heart. Always a phase, case, days, phase, ways, days, case, lays, maze, nays. How? Okay. So maybe, oh, maybe I'll just change this. Always shows a coward or a lion heart. Some days I'm a coward or a lion heart, and I have to get to open door. Roads were open doors, and the wild was hers. Some days I'm a coward or a lion heart. Um, what do I want to say? To get to roads were open doors. Some days I'm a coward or a lion heart. Some days I'm a coward or a lion heart. I guess depending on something. Depending depending on what? Depending on the rain or snow, sun, or blue skies. Or yeah, so then I'm gonna go with that. Some days I'm a coward or a lion heart, depending on the rain or snow, sun or blue skies, or I'm gonna change this. So roads or open doors, and the wild, um, or, and then I'll change hers. The wild or wild or mm, roads or open doors, the wild or what's the opposite of wild? Like zoo, wild or yard, maybe yards, then it's kind of like hers, and there's like a play on the sound. Roads or open doors, the wild or yards, and then something to tie that all together. um, that will lead us into this final paragraph. Um, Roads or open doors, the wild or yards. Some days I'm a coward or a lionheart, depending on the rain or snow, sun or blue skies, or roads or open doors, the wild or yards. Um, hmm, I'm going to go back up here and see what I wrote. There's a lot of heaviness in the world because I know that here, I'm going to go right here. There's a lot of heaviness in the world right now. You don't have to finish your Pantoum with this kind of like closed loop where then the second and third line or second and fourth line become the first and third line up top. So then you kind of have this like daisy chain effect. You don't have to do that, but I like to do it. It makes it feel like it's tied together with a cute little bow, curving like an old woman reminiscing. Okay. Roads or open door. And then here, this is good. So depending on the rain or snow, sun, or blue skies. I'm going to take out this or and just put a comma. Depending on the rain or snow, sun or blue skies, there's a lot of heaviness in the world right now. I'm going to change this to period and then right now. Right now, maybe I'm going to go back in time. So I'll finish it here and then go and bring this back up there. So right now, and then I have to get to curving like an old woman reminiscing. Right now, um, I sit in the rocker looking out at the garden, curving like an old woman reminiscing. Okay, so then roads or open doors, the wild or yards. Um, I sit in the rocker. That kind of fits. Looking out at the garden. I sit in the rocker looking out at the garden. But that I want to turn it into like pulling it back to some days I'm a coward or a lionheart. I sit in the rocker looking out at the garden. Um, Wondering or maybe floundering. I sit in the rocker looking out at the garden, floundering, curving like an old woman reminiscing. Let's see what this sounds like. Okay. There's a lot of heaviness in the world right now. The weight of waiting pulls at the neck, the spine, curving like an old woman reminiscing. Her roses were once lush, vibrant in her youth. The weight of waiting pulls at the neck. The spine always shows a coward or a lion heart. Her roses were once lush, vibrant in her youth. Roads were open doors, and the wild was hers. Some days I'm a coward or a lion heart, depending on the rain or snow, sun or blue skies, or roads or open doors, the wild or yards. I don't like this. The wild or yards. No, I don't like that. I'm gonna have to fix it. Um, okay, depending on the rain or snow, sun or blue skies, or roads or open doors, the wild. Um, was hers. Was hers. The wild. The wild says sure. Like I want it to not necessarily rhyme, but I want it to be um like I want it to be an echo of what has already been said. It doesn't need to be verbatim of what was written. At least nowadays it doesn't. Maybe, 200 years ago, that was the rule that it had to be verbatim, but these days it doesn't. So I want it to be an echo of this line 6. Roads or open doors in the wild was hers for the taking. Roads or open doors, the wild. Hmm. Roads, or, depending on the rain or snow, sun or blue skies, or roads or open doors. The wild has hmm. Roads or open doors, the wild. Maybe when, even when the wild is mine for the taking. Oh, yeah, okay. Then I'll put a period here, then capitalize. Let's see if that works. Okay. The weight of waiting pulls at the neck. The spine always shows a coward or a lion heart. Her roses were once lush, vibrant in her youth. Roads were open doors, and the wild was hers for the taking. Some days I'm a coward or a lion heart, depending on the rain or snow, sun or blue skies, or roads or open doors. Even when the wild is mine for the taking, I sit in the rocker looking out at the garden, floundering. Yeah! Boom, boom. Now, the other thing that is holding me back a little bit is this phrase right here, because it feels disjointed. It doesn't feel like it blends in with the rest of it. The weight of waiting pulls at the neck. The spine always shows a coward or a lion heart. Her roses were once lush. It kind of feels like, okay, well, what does that have to do with the rest of it? Uh, her roses were once lush. Um, Maybe I'll turn this into a simile of some sort. The weight of waiting pulls at the neck. The spine always shows a coward or a lion heart, like roses that were once lush. Okay, I am getting somewhere. I'm going to start from the beginning. There's a lot of heaviness in the world right now. The weight of waiting pulls at the neck, the spine, curving like an old woman reminiscing. Her roses were once lush, vibrant in her youth. The weight of waiting pulls at the neck. The spine always shows a coward or a lion heart, like roses that were once lush. Vibrant in her youth, roads were open doors, and the wild was hers for the taking. Some days I'm a coward or a lion heart, depending on the rain or snow, sun or blue skies, or roads or open doors. Even when the wild is mine for the taking, I sit in the rocker looking out at the garden, floundering. Depending on the rain or snow, sun or blue skies, there's a lot of heaviness in the world. Right now, I sit in the rocker looking out at the garden, floundering, curving like an old woman, reminiscing. All right. This is what I have to offer you today. A lot of crossouts. Okay, I'm gonna rewrite this so that it's more legible. Okay. I might even go back again when I revise this later on in my life because I once had this English professor, and I will say right now that he was a jerk with a capital A, if you get my drift, and not necessarily somebody that I particularly respect or anything, but he said one time, or maybe a few times, that there is and there are is a lazy way to start a sentence when you could use a more active verb, and it just takes a little bit more effort to think of a more active verb that's a stronger verb, and then you have a stronger sentence. And so whenever I see a sentence that starts with there is or there was or there are, I always say, oh, I gotta change it. Oh, it's a lazy sentence. It has, it has made me a better writer because it has made me, um, it has forced me to think of a stronger way to write an active tense or an active sentence rather than a passive sentence. Okay, we're once. I'm going to focus on doing this. Vibrant in her youth. Okay. Um, while I'm transposing this so that it's more clear and maybe better for me to revise it later on at some point. Do either of you have any questions for me about the Pantoum or this process or I don't know, life,
Yeah,
your
yeah, I
hopes
have
and
a question.
dreams?
What do you find the most hardest about this poetry form?
Can you say it again? I didn't hear you at first because I had my volume way low.
Okay, what do you find the most hardest about writing in this poetry form?
Ooh. I think the most challenging part is just making sure that the poem flows. You know how I said like her roses were once lush, that feels disjointed. It didn't feel like um natural. You want the poem to still flow and feel natural instead of forced, like you're just kind of puzzle piecing together uh the lines versus letting the lines flow together and feel like they're supposed to be in that way rather than they're just kind of like you know, square peg round hole type of thing. So I would say that. I think another challenge would be if you do choose to write a pantoum uh with the rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme is like the first and third lines would rhyme and the second and fourth lines would rhyme. So you're constantly having that kind of rhyme scheme throughout. Um, that would also be a challenge. I don't particularly care for rhymey poetry, so I try to avoid it. I know that some of the poetic forms require it, like the sonnet, for example. Um, But if I have the option of not doing a rhymey poem, I'm gonna choose to not do it. Um, so I think that would also be a challenge for this particular poetic form. And Connie, I have been doing research on poetic forms that use location in some way. And I have not found, I mean, I have a database of like almost 300 poetic forms, and I have not found one that uses location in some way. Um, I want there to be one, and I've been thinking of how um, I might create a poetic form that uses location in some way. Have you thought yourself about how location might be used in a poetic form?
Well, I found one example,
You
and
did?
then I've written one. And the rule is that the first sentence has to establish a location. For
Okay.
example, you could say just north of town, there is a road that so on and so on. Or, just south of the railroad station, this happened.
Okay.
But the first few words have to describe a location.
Is there a name for it?
I was going to call it location.
Oh, like a location poem.
Yeah, like a location form.
Oh, okay. I like it. Floundering.
So what do you do if you have established a new form? How do you make the world aware?
Well, um, you come on the joy of poeting as a guest spot. Um, well, so for example, with the rib cage is a new upcoming form. It was invented by a high school student actually named Athena Liu, who has since graduated, I think is still in college, but maybe not. And when I was in a writing workshop that was led by Torrin A. Greathouse through the Speakeasy Project, one of the tasks that she had us do was to come up with a new poetic form. And the ribcage was Athena's form, invented form. And that was where it was born, but it wasn't published anywhere. Um, and really, I just was in love with it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so smart, so incredible. That I wrote one and I became kind of obsessed with it. And then um, a friend of mine, Talisha Johnson, also became obsessed with it and has done workshops on it and things like that. And it has been slowly spreading that way. Um, but really, like you just you write you just write it and maybe you publish it in a journal and it gets published somewhere and um like when you have a title for the poem, you can have a little like italicized underneath that says a location poem or just
Yeah, that makes sense.
uh and then it's published somewhere and maybe it ends up taking off, maybe it doesn't, but there, that looks more beautiful. Um I'm gonna switch camera back. Uh yeah. So how does it how does a form get birthed into the world? I'm not exactly sure. I invented a form called the Dipper, and it's pretty convoluted. I don't even want to do it on this show because uh, it took me a really long time, like days, to complete one. I've only written one in my life, and and it was published. And one poet whose name is Omar did create a dipper. I don't know if he published it or not, but like, is it gonna go somewhere? Is it gonna become something? I think uh one of the ways that a poetry form does take uh, or does gain in popularity, like the duplex, is its ability to be a challenge, but also accessible enough that it's doable. Like the dipper is like not even accessible for me, and I invented it. It has two sections, and you have to use all of the exact same words from the first section and the second section, and that is what is the biggest challenge of it. Uh, yeah. So, I think having a poetic form that is easy enough to complete, but not so easy that people are like, oh, that's easy. You know, that people feel like, oh, that's a challenge. Oh, I want to do it. So I feel like a duplex is like that. Um, the a Pantoum is like that. It's a challenge, but not so much of a challenge that people say, oh no, like I'm not even going to try to do that. Cento is another good one that I feel like is pretty popular. I've seen centos are poems that are pieced together from other texts,
Yes.
and I've seen centos that are created from people's tweets or people's Facebook statuses, or people make centos out of song lyrics. They make centos from like the Constitution or other famous texts. And so it's doable, but it's still a challenge. Yeah. So I did that answer your question? I feel like I kind of
Yes.
rambled on.
Yes. No, that's good. Thank you. Thank you for thinking about it.
Yeah.
Very fun.
Um, so I'm not doing a poll this week because I feel like I have a long list of requests. The Cento has been a request for a couple of times, and then we had Duplex, Villanelle, Cijo, um, have all come up. And so I want to start working on, I'll cross Pantoum off, working on the list of ones that have already been nominated. And then once we're out of nominations, then I'll start the poll again. Other questions before I call it a night?
Nope, sounds good. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thanks so much for being here. And if you are Super Bowl watchers, now go watch the game. Thanks for being here with
Okay.
me. I do appreciate it.
Yep, thank you. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
All
See
right,
you
good
next
night.
week.
Yep, bye.